you're facing an opponent that does a 4 counter 4, and I have to tell you it's not that common, though it should be, it will look like this. Here's the attack. I do a 4, you do a disengage. I make a circle around and catch your attack as if I caught you successfully on the 4 parry. So I'm in the exact same position as if I'd simply parried 4. There's just an extra movement. I parry 4, you disengage. I make a circle and touch it back here and make a repost. So it looks like this from your position. 4 counter 4. 4 counter 4 I'm doing. There's your disengage. And here's my counter 4 to catch you. Now, of course, this has an answer if you're the attacker, and that's a disengage double, but we'll do that a different time. The other parry combo we did is this. 4, 6, counter 6. If you're facing me, it looks like this. I do a 4, I do a 6, I do a counter 6. If you're you, it looks like this, if you're right-handed. 4, 6, 2 windshield wiper parries, counter 6. My blade is now going clockwise, not counterclockwise like the counter 4. Again, 4, 6, counter 6. 4, 6, counter 6. You'll notice that this, it's kind of hard to think of it this way, but if I had a pencil on the end of my foil, I'm drawing the base of a cone. You can see I'm drawing the base. And the cone comes down, so the tip of the cone is actually here. So this barely moves. If you look at my counter 6, you'll see it's not big and sweeping, which is creates a big hole. It's just here. The whole pivot or the fulcrum is here. So facing this way, 4, 6, counter 6, 4, 6, windshield wipers, counter 6, clockwise circle. 4, 6, counter 6, clockwise circle. 4, 6, counter 6, clockwise. 4, 6, counter 6. I didn't do a lefty with the other one, but you can perhaps make the mirror image. This is a lefty for 4, 6. Here's the 4. Here's the 6. Because you're now a lefty, your counter 6 goes counterclockwise. You are the mirror image. 4, 6, counter 6. 4, 6, counter 6. These are useful parries if someone's making a complicated or compound attack. The most natural parry, of course, is a 4, though you don't always want to do that. Sometimes you want to counter 6 or some other parry. But if you do go to a 4 out of habit, and you find yourself in this position with no blade contact, make a sweeping parry 4. Or if you do 4, 6 and you still haven't found the blade, make a counter 6. So it's player to player, and then zone. Player to player, player to player, zone. If you throw up this wall of defense, it often can foil, no pun intended, your opponent's attack. If someone's coming at you and you're just throwing up, it's like putting up a whole bunch of barbed wire or smoke screens or anything. So you can actually practice this, and you can sort of see it in the air like the diagram I showed you. It's a loop-de-loop this way, and from here you can simply go back to 6 counter 6, because that you start from 4, so you don't need that extra motion on the second parry. So it's 4 counter 4, 6 counter 6. From your angle, if you're right-handed, 4 counter 4, 6 counter 6. 4 counter 4, 6 counter 6. You can, again, presume that you've got tape, not tape, chalk or a pen or something on the end of your foil, or one of those light bulbs that you can trace the light pattern with. 4 counter 4, 6 counter 6. 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 Obviously, knowing what you know about the quadrant system, this can all be done down low, though it's far less common. You can do an octave, counter octave, a septime, counter septime. This is exactly the same, it's just in the lower quadrant as this. But again, this is not that common. It's hard to find a case where you're doing a counter 8. Sometimes a counter 7, which is sort of like a 6. So that's a way to understand the nature and the building blocks of that compound defense. Let's spiral back to the second kind of advanced lunge, which is foot to foot. We're going to do, again, a 1-2. First disengages with the advance. You bring your foot to your front foot. And the second disengages with the lunge. This is an accelerated attack. Ready? Advance foot to foot, disengage. There's the feint, 3/4. Kick and lunge with the second disengage, and hit, recover, and retreat. Advance, extending, foot to foot, disengage, hit, recover, retreat. Advance extending, foot to foot, disengage the second time, recover, retreat. Advance disengage, as I said, second time, lunge. Advance disengage, foot to foot, second disengage, lunge. Advance disengage, foot to foot, second disengage, lunge. 3 more. Advance disengage, foot to foot. Advance disengage, second disengage, of course. And 1 more. Advance disengage, second disengage. Now we'll do 5 of those at full speed, even though it's accelerating, so it's slow, fast. Face your target. It's 2 disengages. It's a 1, 2. Go. 1, 2. Recover, retreat. 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 And relax. We'll finish with the balestra for this segment, and then in the next segment we'll talk about change of direction and absence de fer, or blade absent attacks. 5 balestras with a 1, 2. Go. 1, 2. Recover, retreat. 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 Go. 1, 2. Recover and retreat. I think I'll add one more thing. We'll do a balestra. We'll stay in the lunge. We'll parry 4 in the lunge and make a counter riposte. Let's remember that the word counter in this case means answering riposte. It does not mean circular. That's the trouble with that term. Counter 6 means circular 6. Counter parry means any circular parry. But counter riposte means answering your riposte with my parry riposte. Balestra, stay in the lunge. Watch me 2 more times. Balestra, in the lunge, parry 4, riposte, recover, and retreat. I come back to 4 when I recover. Again, balestra, parry 4, in the lunge, disengage, high line, come back to 4, recover, and retreat. Face your target. 5, ready? Go, balestra, stay in the lunge, parry 4, riposte, come back to 4, recover, and retreat. Go, balestra, stay in the lunge, parry 4, counter riposte, come back to 4, recover, retreat. Go, balestra, stay in the lunge, parry 4, riposte, come back to 4, recover, and retreat. Balestra, stay in the lunge, 4, riposte, recover, retreat. Go, balestra, stay in the lunge, come back to 4, make your counter riposte, come back to 4 again, recover, and retreat. So, in the next segment, we'll talk about defense for absence de fer, where the blade is not available to you. And we can also talk about, you can make your own absence de fer attacks. We'll talk about that in the next video.